Hi there. Today's discourse is on the spiritual attribute of true humility. Now, you might wonder why the word true is in front of humility. Why not just humility? And in a lot of ways, it is just humility, but it's the true meaning of humility, or the true demonstration of it. Perhaps that's a better way to put it. We know what humility is, I think, don't we? To be humble. Somebody who doesn't talk about themselves endlessly, somebody who goes about doing good things and doesn't expect any praise for it. Perhaps even gets embarrassed if somebody does point out what a great job they're doing and makes a fuss. You know, they like the nice, well, they appreciate appreciation, but they don't want a big fuss made out of it. This is who they are. This is what they do. It's no big. They just don't want the fuss. They're truly humble people. They are also people, though, who are very confident within themselves. They will stand up and be counted when necessarily. They don't let people walk all over them. They don't necessarily give to everybody who asks just because they've been asked. They perhaps think about it and put it in the right context. Is this really the right thing to do, or the right thing for me to do? Is it really in this person's best interest? That sort of thing. So they are very strong people. So in no way, shape or form is somebody with true humility a doormat. And you know what I mean by a doormat. Somebody that lets people walk all over them. And that's what a lot of people mistake humility for. They see somebody who's pushed around all over the place. You know, they're tired, they're exhausted, but they're still doing everything for everybody without a thought to themselves, without realising that this person is a slave to this. They haven't got what it takes to stand up for themselves. So they're just being pushed around. To us looking on, it may look like that they've willingly, selflessly given up their own life to be of such great service to others. Or if it's in a relationship, that they've devoted themselves to a partner without any thought for themselves, and this is what they want. We often mistake that for humility, or even in our own selves, if we think, oh, I'm a bit too arrogant, I'm a bit too up myself, I need to be a bit more humble. Well, sometimes the mistake in that path is to go too much the other way and end up being somebody's doormat, allowing somebody to control you. So this is definitely something that has to be looked at when we look at true humility. Because as a spiritual person, you want to be of service to others. You want to help others wherever and whenever you can. But you also want to be able to look after your own best interests as well. And I don't mean this in a nasty way, that, looking out for my own best interests at the expense of others. I don't mean it that way. I mean sacrificing for others at times, but making sure that there are other times when you sacrifice for yourself, so that you maintain your own health, your own contentment, your own satisfaction with life, so that when you are helping others, there's never a tinge of resentment, wishing that you were elsewhere, that you do look after yourself and you are satisfied with what you do for your own self, but you are now willingly giving your time for others, assisting in other ways. That is what true humility is. And you're not doing it for praise. You're not doing it so that you'll be recognized in your community as some great person. If you get recognition, fair enough, and you accept it graciously, but you don't make a fuss about it. And you certainly don't brag about it to others wherever you go, reminding people that you're this great person in your community. If they don't realise it, fine. If they do, great. Doesn't matter. So this is, of course, where the ego comes in, isn't it? And I've spoken about the need for an ego before, and we do need our ego. We need it very much so. Without an ego, we won't achieve anything. But we shouldn't be doing good works just to boost our ego. It should be because it makes us feel good about ourselves that we are helping others. So that's a little bit of ego thing, but that's just the right amount. And that comes because that's a natural thing. Okay, on the spiritual path, you naturally get to a point where you just feel good about yourself when you've helped someone. It often feels better to you when you've helped someone than when someone's helped you. Certainly can be an equal kind of a feeling. So you're going about helping people in whatever way is best suited to you, of course, and in the situation you are in, because that's where ego comes in too. If ego is insisting that you help people, but in a certain way that brings notice to yourself and makes you look good, well, you're not being truly humble at all. But others may look upon you that don't really know you very well and think that you are a humble person because they're helping. So you need to give a bit of thought to what is humility? What is it really? What do we mistake for humility? And what do we need to do to make sure that as a committed spiritual person, we are truly humble? And that's when looking at keeping the ego to where it serves us, helps us to progress on our spiritual path because we want to progress. We are in competition with ourselves, not with anyone else. And so as we make progress, it makes us feel good about ourselves and we keep going. That's how we want our ego to be. We don't want to be so afraid of getting an inflated ego that we end up letting people use us, letting people control us. Now, depending upon where you are in your lifetimes, you may be somebody who has a tendency to an inflated ego. And when you come into this spiritual work, that will be tested. That will be tested. And before you know it, you may be acting from an point of an inflated ego without even knowing it. And you know, that's part of the path, to go through that. You'll go through it in one life, possibly more than one. The important thing is to recognise it at some point and to acknowledge it. Depending upon your situation, you may have to acknowledge it publicly. But you may not. You may simply have to acknowledge it to yourself and then to go about doing whatever's required to bring that ego back into that nice middle ground. And if you're that person, you may have to be very careful that you don't swing too far the other way and become that doormat or that person who just works themselves into the ground because they think that's what they've got to do now. No, it's all about balance. And now in this lifetime, if you are on the other side, you are the doormat, you are the person that everybody pushes around, the person who feels that they're not really worth much, or they have a calling to save the world and they must give up everything in order to do it, or ego can come into that too, of course, feeling that you have a calling to save the world. So it can be a little bit confusing, this path of just having the right sized ego. And that's what true humility is all about. It's about having that healthy ego, that ego that works for you in a positive and truly spiritual way. And what's truly spiritual? Have a look at the spiritual attributes. There's 49 of them. They will help you to understand what true spirituality is. Or for a person, the attributes a person needs to have to be truly spiritual. Okay? And that's where they can help you. It's a bit of a check and balance. And okay, you're not going to have them all, or not to a great extent, but a spiritual person is working towards them, consciously working towards them. So that does help you. It's a nice little list that can help you. And of course, true humility is on the list. But as I've said so many times, these spiritual attributes don't work alone. They need the others to some degree. Might not necessarily need all of them, at once or whatever, but they definitely work together. And a person could get really lost intellectually looking at how they all work together. Might be an interesting exercise for somebody who is more intellectually inclined. However, if that's the case, just don't get lost in the exercise of intellectually working it all out, because that's good and could very well be useful if it's helping you to understand them more and helping you to actually put them into practical use in your life, because that's what it's all about. If you're not putting these spiritual attributes to use to make your life better and to make the life of others better, then it's just an intellectual exercise. And intellectual exercises don't necessarily lead to wisdom. They give you knowledge or information. Might not even be true knowledge, just information. But if you want wisdom, you actually have to put these things into practice. And don't expect to be an expert straight up. It can be very confusing trying to activate all these spiritual attributes. So that's where the ego can get a little bruised. But then maybe it needed to be bruised. And I'm not being judgmental here. I know from experience, I've been in a state of having an inflated ego in this lifetime and not even being aware of it. Oh, I saw it in others, didn't I? Did I see it in myself? No. But I did later on, when I had moved on, when the whole situation had moved on, and I'd had some humbling experiences, which I'm very grateful for, and opened my eyes. So never again will I assume that I don't have an inflated ego. I keep an eye on it. And I ask my guides to let me know if it's getting out of hand again. Because we do need help. And of course, we've got to want to. Some people will go through all of the videos that I make on the spiritual attributes and maybe even read some of the lessons and things that I've produced over the years and decide not to do anything with it. Well, that was interesting, but not put it into practice. That's not my loss. It's theirs, really, because they've given up some good tools. But having actually been exposed to them, perhaps in their next life, they'll bring it through as some kind of knowledge or some kind of information that they have that they can draw on and just start to put them in practice then. You never know, do you? And you could take that when you're trying to help someone, where you're trying to give them some information that's helped you spiritually and they're not taking it on board. They listen, but then you see they're not putting it into practice. Well, don't be disappointed. Like, there'll be that little pang, but don't worry about it, because just maybe they couldn't do it now. But maybe in their next life it'll be there. Part of that information that flows to us as intuition. And it might help them then. So then we might have looked at a few things in this discourse on true humility, and that's fine. Please give it some thought. And please put it into practice on your spiritual journey, because it will pay off. It really will. Thank you for listening to me.